Hey Bookish Babes, and welcome to my book nook. For those who don't know me, my name's Reenie Barton. I'm an elementary music teacher and middle school musical theater teacher by day, and a booktuber by night, and I talk about all different sorts of books, but my favorite is typically thriller and horror. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, make sure to press subscribe, stick around for videos on Sundays, sometimes other days of the week like today, which is Wednesday, and all that fun stuff. If you're regular, you're wondering where the heck I am, and I'm in my classroom. Why? Because I was going to film last night after my son went to sleep, and then I passed out right next to him, and so that didn't happen, and I still wanted to get this video up. So I just came to work early before school hours to get it done. So this is the, I have like a garage type, like, office. I don't know how to explain it. Like, that's all my like storage, but it's also my office. It's really weird. Anyway, we're just going to roll with it for this video for my January wrap-up, where I talk about all the books that I read in January. And so if you're ready for that, let's dive in. Okay, so the way that I'm going to do my stats is a little different. I recently started using this document to track my stuff. I mean, I have my Airtable, and I also have this Google Sheets one called Caw Pile, which is like a ranking system designed by the Book Roast YouTube channel. And so I will post a link to her video down below with her newest edition of this tracker, because this tracker is like lofty goals, let me tell you. Plus, I've been getting a little mad with Storycraft because it hasn't always been accurate in what it says. Like, it'll categorize my books as like multiple different types of genres. It'll say I've only read 8 books instead of 10, and so Storygraph has been trying my life, and so we're going to give you some nice facts using my Caw Pile tracker, and I will post those pictures up here as I talk about them. For this month, I read, it says a total of 12 books, but I really only read 10 because I DNF'd 2, and we will definitely make sure to talk about that. And yeah, like I said, I DNF'd 2 books. The page count that I read for this month was 3,567 pages, so not too shabby, although according to Storygraph, I'm behind in my page count of 50,000 by the end of the year, but I digress. The way that I read books was 33% was through physical reads and 66% was mixed media, meaning that I did a combo of listening to the audiobook and reading with the physical, which I've learned is my favorite way of doing it. I really enjoy having someone else read it to me while I'm also looking at it, and so I try to do that if possible, but there were 4 books that like the audiobook just wasn't coming and I had to get them done, so I went physical. And it's funny because I only ever read physical until last year, and I didn't realize the world I was missing in audiobooks. So, like, this is your plug that if you don't listen to audiobooks, you really should. It really enhances the reading experience. As far as genres, the genres that I read this year was 1 science fiction, 1 horror, 3 fantasy, 1 thriller, 1 historical fiction, 2 romance, and 1 magical realism. Although I wouldn't say that I actually read that one, because that was definitely a DNF. And the thriller, I think, was a DNF. So, you know. 1 was a novella, the rest were novels. As far as my star ratings go, for this month I did 4 3 stars, 1 2 star, and 6 5 stars. So it was actually a really great reading month, and we're going to talk all about it in just a sec. It was fabulous. As far as the age category goes, I read 8 that were considered adult books, 2 that were considered young adult books, 2 that were considered new adult books, which I had to look up what new adult means. It means when the protagonist is between the ages of, I believe, 18 and 30. Didn't know that. I did 1 reread in this season as well. I reread a book, and you will find out which one it is because I never reread books, so that was a big deal for me. I also read 6 standalones and 4 in a series, and I've been trying to really read more series as of late, so that was pretty good. 25% of my reads were by a person of color author, and then 75% was not, and I read from 1 African American author, 1 Asian author, and 1 Malaysian author. And then I just figured I'd put this wheel on the screen because, like, it shows the different authors that I've read from, and right now it's only 1 per author, but as the year goes on, I'm probably going to read more from, like, specific authors, and so this wheel is going to look really cool, and then I'll show it every month just so you can see the progression of it. And then the last fact is that 25% of these authors I have read from before, and 75% were brand new authors to me this month. So that's super exciting. And with all of these fun facts, let's talk about what I actually read, shall we? So I was originally just going to go in order from like DNF all the way to 5-star, but I figure I'll do it more in the order of like the purpose of why I read the books, just to keep it together because that's how I remember them. And then we can talk about books that I didn't end up getting to because I didn't get to every book I wanted to get to. Okay, so let's start with the beginning of the month, which is where I read a couple of books right before Winterween, but we're going to start with Winterween. So Winterween is a readathon that is hosted by Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte and Gabby from Gabby Reads every winter, beginning of January, where you're going to read spooky books in a winter setting. And so there was a couple of different prompts, and I don't remember all of the prompts right now, but I do remember the books that were on my docket for that. I had 4 books that I was planning to read, and I was planning to read Shiver by Allie Reynolds, Near the Bone by Christina Henry, Every Heart a Doorway, which was my novella by Seanan McGuire, and No Exit by Taylor Adams. And I read all 3 except for No Exit by Taylor Adams, and the reason I didn't read that was super petty. I didn't want to read my mass market paperback version of it, and so I'm getting it in March from Book of the Month, the nice fancy version, because I just hate mass market paperbacks so much, and I wasn't inspired to read it, and I want to read it soon because the movie comes out, the movie adaptation in February, and so I need to get it kicking and get a copy of that for myself. Let's talk about the ones that I read during Winterween. And so I kicked it off by starting with Near the Bone by Christina Henry, and I loved that book. It was a 5 stars. It lived up to the hype for sure. So I'm not going to talk about them too much because I talked about them in the, what I'm going to read. But basically that one is about a girl. She's very abused by her, physically and mentally abusive husband. They live up at the top of the mountains, where no one can get them. There's, this weird creature in the woods that, kills things, and so they're, scared to go outside, but then some strangers show up on their top of their mountain that, they haven't had visitors in forever, and they're coming to track this beast, and so, she wants to save the people from getting hurt by her husband, not the creature. I don't know why her husband would be scarier than a freaking creature out there. But anyway, it's the story of that. And it was just so good. It built up that entire, intensity the whole time of, what is this creature? I really want to know. It's doing scary-ass things. And, she's being a badass. And, dealing with, her terrible husband. And just, the people that show up, it was really great to meet them. Everything was just good. It was, the perfect horror read. It kept you scared and freaked out the entire time. And I really liked how the end of it went. She definitely was not afraid to crazy things happen. So yeah, if you're looking for a horror book that's not too scary, because this wasn't that scary. If it's not too scary, but you want to be enthralled the whole time in the story and what's going on, this is definitely a book for you to check out. I read Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire, and that is the first book in the Wayward Children series, which is this series about a bunch of kids that go to fairy tale worlds essentially, and then they get kicked out of their worlds through the portal they came in, and they have to go to this school in order to learn how to go back to the real world instead of keep dreaming about the fantasy world that they got kicked out of or something. I'm not entirely still sure of the specifics, but it was really good. I just loved it. It was so cute. I loved all of the characters. I loved their interactions. I loved the mystery that's going on because it is a murder mystery. Some of the kids are just being picked off one by one, and you want to see what happens. And even though it wasn't that big of a book, it was just really great. And I love where the storyline is going because we're going to start following specific kids in their fantasy world, which I'm really excited about because the first one was just on the main campus and getting to meet all the characters and all the things. And there are definitely characters that I like more than others. So I'm super excited to see where this book series keeps going, so I need to buy the next one for sure. It's just hard because they're kind of pricey for novellas. Then I read Shiver by Allie Reynolds, and this one I read for this, and then I also read for a book club, a chat-only book club that I'm in with a couple of friends. And this one was actually pretty good. I mean, it's your standard, locked room, murder mystery. It wasn't, anything super special. I did give it a 4, though, because there were a couple of parts in the twist that I rather enjoyed, and I did still enjoy the read. It's just I kind of feel bad because I hated the person that died, and you get to learn. So the whole story is that they're all skiers and they all do ski competitions and stuff, snowboarding competitions, and one of them and the 6 friends dies in the beginning, and then 10 years later they're on a reunion back at that thing that they think is planned by one of them, and then they find out it wasn't planned by one of them. Anyway, all of that sort of stuff. And the one that got murdered, you get flashbacks. Every other chapter is 10 years ago and then the present time, and then 10 years ago and then present time. So you get to see what happened, and I actually really hated the girl that got killed, and so I kind of felt oh, she kind of deserved it, and then I'm nobody deserves to die, Rainey, come on. But yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed the present and the past, although I think, enjoyed the present more. Although I will say the reason it also got a 5 is because some of the stuff that happened at the end is just really unbelievable. Like, once you read it, you'll understand. I've thought about it prior and been like, I don't know how much of that I believe. Not that I'm saying I'm not okay with, like, outlandish, endings and stuff, but sometimes I'm like, if that doesn't seem logical, like, I just don't know, you know? In fantasy, you can get away with so much more than, like, other genres. But it was still a really good read, so I definitely would still encourage it. And then, like I said, I didn't read No Exit, so we're not going to even talk about it. It'll be on another TBR at some point. Okay, then let's go with books that I had to read for my TBR challenge. So I had to read 6 books, and that didn't happen. I believe I read 4. So let's talk about the 2 that I didn't first. I did not read The Pisces by Melissa Broder. I just didn't get to it. Not that I really wanted to, because the whole premise is about a girl that, like, bangs a fish man or a merman or something. I don't really know. But I'm not too sad I didn't get to it. I'll get to it some other time. And then the other one that I didn't read is Next Year in Havana by Chanel Clayton. I do want to read that series. It's more historically fiction, which I like, but it's not like my favorite thing in the world. But I have been wanting to read this series. I just wasn't in the mood. I have to be in a mood to read that. I was not in the mood. I'm sure I'll read it some other time, so we'll survive. For my TBR challenge, I did read The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey, and I gave that 4 stars. I really rather enjoyed that. It was like, it classifies itself as a sci-fi thriller, which I agree with. I will say that I think it did the perfect job of not doing too much sci-fi to, like, completely nerd out in all the science of it all, because it is about cloning. But I think it did a really good job at contrasting between the cloning bits and then, like, the actual thriller and the story and what's going on. The reason I gave it 4 out of 5 stars is because I was really upset with, like, what happens with the main character, with Evelyn, because I just feel like she constantly is getting shit on and not getting what she deserves. And I just don't feel like the ending was satisfying for me in what happens. And I just wish that, like, a little more had gone on. But it was still a really great read. I really enjoyed it. I loved the relationship between her and her clone. That's not like, that's not ruining anything. That's literally what the whole book is about. But yeah, it was just really great to see, and I'm just excited to read more from this author because I know she has another book coming out this year, and so I'm super excited to see what it's all about. Then I read My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing, and I really love Samantha Downing. I've classified her as a favorite author of mine now because I read For Your Own Good by her in, like, late December, and then I read this one, which came out before that, and this book was just so good. Like, I just really enjoy her writing style. It flows very easily. When I find an author whose books I can just eat up just like that, I'm really living for it. I will say, the reason that that one got a 4-star as well, that's what I gave it, is because I just didn't like the guy. So, like, the narrator is the husband in the relationship, and you never learn his name. And the whole premise is that they are a murdering couple. Like, they just murder innocent women, and it never really explains why. Like, there's not really a good answer for that. But the twist is crazy at the end. I didn't see it coming. I loved the ending. That wasn't the problem. The problem was him, because he's, like, extremely squeamish. He can't handle any of the things that they're doing, yet he's the one that, like, encouraged them to murder people. So it's just like, if you can't handle it and you're gonna expect your wife to clean up all your messes, why are you guys doing it? Like, I don't really know. And so he was just kind of like pansy kind of, and I just wasn't for it. So I don't know. I think it would have been a lot better if it had been written from the woman's perspective, from Millicent's perspective. And so I would love if she even wrote another book where it's written from the girl's perspective, but that's probably not going to happen. But if she wants my creative, ideas, you can take them or leave them, Samantha Downing, but you should do it. I also read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is, like, one of my favorite authors ever. I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by her last year, and that's, like, my favorite book of the year, possibly one of my favorite books of all time. And then I also read Malibu Rising, and that was also great. This one was fantastic. It was a 5-star. And I will say thank you to every single person that recommended I listen to the audiobook and not just read it physically, because it had a full cast and it just made the experience so much more better. So it's basically a Fleetwood Mac inspired book about a band called Daisy Jones and the Six that existed in the 60s and 70s, and it's all about, like, how they got together and how they made their albums and then how they broke up inevitably because of, like, irreconcilable differences between, like, the Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks of the group, Billy Dunn and Daisy Jones. And I loved it. I loved the story. I loved how raw Daisy was and how it really like lit out all of her emotions. It had some amazing quotes in it. It had song lyrics at the back, which I loved, but it didn't have music to go with it, which made my heart hurt. Although they're doing a movie, I believe, this year, and so my prayers have been answered. There's going to be music to accompany it, and then I can hear all of these songs that I know and love in real time because the lyrics are banger. Just saying. But yeah. This book was such a good read. It was probably one of my favorite reads I read in January. It was just such a good time. I can't wait to read more of TJR's backlist, like One True Loves and a couple other ones like that. I'm just ready to read anything she is willing to give me at this point. And then the last one that I read for my TBR challenge was The Ghost Bride by Yangtze Chu. And even if I had all the books in my possession right now to show you, I wouldn't have been able to show you it alone because I gave it to a little free library, which I have a vlog coming out on the little free libraries soon. I didn't care for this book. It was a 2-star. So it started out really strong. I was really interested in like the storyline about, this girl that she's promised to be a bride to like a ghost and how she doesn't want to and it's haunting her, and like it had a really great premise from the start, and then it just kind of went downhill and a lot of weird stuff started happening, and then it was dragging, and then our main character was boring and was making stupid ass decisions that I was like, why are you making these decisions? It was actually frustrating me how stupid she was being, and I just didn't care for the ending. Like it was a really big struggle to finish this book. Like I almost DNF'd it at like 80%, and I was like, girl, you've been 80% of the way. You should just finish this book. I should have DNF'd it way earlier than that, but if I get to 80%, it's like, are you really going to DNF at the 80% mark? No, girl. No. So anyway, it was really rough. I didn't really love it. I do have another book by them. I'm willing to give them one more chance to show me that like I don't hate their writing style, because the writing itself was good. It's just I didn't jive with the story. But that's the only 2-star I gave out. So I'd say that's not too bad of a reading month. Let's talk about book clubs and readathons that I was involved in and how those went, those reads. So I did 3 readathons / book clubs, and 2 of them were DNFs and 1 was a 5-star. So let's talk about it. So I was trying to read Booked and Busy, which is Erin's YouTube channel, Be in Her Busy Bee Book Club, where they're doing fantasy series, and so I figured I'd give it a try, although I'm not interested in like the March through May selection, so I figured I'd try the duology by N.K. Jemisin, which is an author that I've always wanted to read from. And this is one of her lesser-known series, and apparently it's not one of her best series, because a lot of people in the Busy Bee Book Club DNF'd this book, including myself. And I DNF'd it on page 16 because I had no idea what the hell was going on, and I had read for 16 pages. And I understand that, fantasy books can be confusing, and especially high fantasy ones, it can take a while to know what's going on, but, I didn't even understand, a word. I was like, what did I just read? There's fantasy books I can read, and I'm like, okay, I can follow this. It's there's a lot of words I don't know, but the storyline still makes sense. This did not make sense. I'm not too sad that I DNF'd it. I only bought it for $5 on Pango Books. I didn't buy the second one yet, so no worries there. And it's one less book I have to read in February, but it just wasn't for me. I will try N.K. Jemisin again. I'm going to start with the 5th season, or some book that I know is known and loved by everybody. And then I also read for Gabby's Book Troop Club, we read Where They Found Her by Kimberly McCrate. She wants to read a lot more of backlist books this month or this year, and this was a DNF for me. I got about 30% in, and I was completely bored. There was 30 plus characters. They had these character maps at the end that they were showing in the live show, and it was beyond insane how many characters there were. It was really hard to follow along with the audiobook, and I didn't always have the physical copy with me, but you have to have both because there were so many characters. It was just really confusing. And the storyline wasn't great, and then I checked out the spoilers at the end because I was like, well, if I'm not going to read this book, might as well know what happened. Not worth my time. Not worth my time. So if you haven't read Where They Found Her, I'd recommend not doing it. I've heard she has 1 or 2 other good books in her arsenal, but honestly, I don't know if I really care to read from her again, so we'll see. But it just wasn't a good time. Then we get to Mel Reads. So Mel is doing a Green Bone Saga readathon for the trilogy in January, February, and March. And so it's the Jade City series by Fonda Lee. And I've been wanting to read this series for a while. I've been wanting to really get into more fantasy and see what it's all about. And I figured that's a great book to do it. And so I read Jade City in January. And oh my gosh, this book was so good. Not only is it a 5-star, not only is it like gonna be a book of the year, it might even be in like my books of all time. I loved this book so much. I just loved it. Loved it. So it's very family dynamic oriented because it's about two opposing clans in Janloon City, and how jade is like used there to like as like a reward, like to you can wear jade on your body and it helps strengthen you and give you like powers, but you have to be like a green bone warrior in order to wear jade. And of course there's thieves and stuff that want to have jade, and so like it's two rivaling clans that are trying to be in charge. And then this like fake drug like SN1 that like basically allows you to wear jade even though you shouldn't be because you're not a green bone warrior comes out, and one clan is like selling it, and so their goal is to be like at the top because they're letting everybody wear jade. And it's just about the two opposing clans, but you only focus in on one clan and their family and their whole lineage, and the family dynamics between them all was fantastic. If you've read it, then you know Hilo is like the best person ever. I freaking love Hilo, although I love all of them. I liked Shay, I liked Andon, I liked Lan. Doru was not great, crusty Doru, but it was so freaking good. I cannot wait to see where book 2 goes because it ended on like a cliffhanger, and so you're just like, well, what's going to happen next? I gotta know. Plus, I had so much fun watching the live stream video for this because it was like 2 hours long, and it was like with Mel and How to Train Your Gavin and Sid Bookworm, and I love all three of them, and so it was just so funny to watch. Oh, and Rachel from Let Me in the Library. But yeah, I loved it. I'm definitely going to read on. I recommend you read it. It was so good, and if you're not a big fantasy person, you still will be able to follow along with this really well, so don't give up on it. It's the best. And then the last two books that I have to talk about, let's talk about one that I just read randomly. It wasn't on my TBR. It was because I had like 2 days of the month left, and I didn't want to read either the Pisces or the Havana one, so I just chose one that I knew the sequel was coming out in March, and so I figured this was a great time to read it because I wanted to pre-order it. And that's It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Oh my gosh, this book was so good. 5-star, super spicy, super steamy, like a bearded hot fisherman guy can like spoil me any day. It was like so good. So it's about Piper Bellinger, who she's very much based on Alexis from Schitt's Creek, which if you've never watched that, what are you doing with your life? And she's like, this spoiled like heiress, whatever, and she does one party too many, and her dad sends her and her sister to like this like little fishing town in the middle of nowhere where her dad was from, to like reclaim his bar and like fix it up as like punishment for 3 months. And of course they go there, and she meets this like fisherman guy who like totally doesn't like her, and by the end they're like in love, can't be apart from each other. And like the scheme between these two and the way Tessa Bailey writes like steamy scenes and dirty talk was just like chef's kiss. It was so good. So good. I just loved it so much. I loved everything about it. They were the cutest couple. I can't wait to read the sequel, even though it's not following them. It's following her sister, which I love the sister, but I really love Piper. And, it was just everything you want in a romance novel and more. It seriously was so freaking good. I would read that again. It was just so good. I'm just so good. And then I did do one reread this month, which I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm still planning on doing a vlog, and I still want to do this vlog, and so I'm not going to ruin it. But let's just say it was a childhood favorite, and I wanted to reread it again to see if it still lived up to the hype like 10, 15 years later, and it did. It's still freaking 5 stars. It's still fantastic. It's still really cheesy, but you know what? I'm just living for it. And so I don't reread books often. I plan on rereading the entire Harry Potter series this year, which that'll be like the 3rd or 4th time that I've read that. But who's not going to reread Harry Potter? You know. Anyway, that's how that went. The reread was great. You will find out what I reread very soon when the vlog comes up. But I have to read 2 more books for the vlog to come up, and that's why you don't know what it is, because I was going to read them in January, and that just didn't happen. And that's all the books that I read in January. So I read 10 books overall and DNF'd 2. It wasn't my best month, hasn't been my worst month. But then again, as of 4 months ago, I wasn't even reading one single book in a month. So you know. But I also wasn't nearly as excited about all of these books as I am for February, which I already uploaded February's TBR. So if you haven't watched that yet, definitely go check it out because I'm so excited about that. There's so many books coming out in February. There's so many good stuff, like so much good things. So, but yeah, I'm super excited that January is over and that we're moving on to February. So thanks, guys. I'm glad I made this video, and I will see you very soon. Bye.